and welcome to Escaping Kasterborous, the podcast where we rewatch, reminisce, and review everything Doctor Who from 2005 to present. My name is Rich, and I'm joined by someone who once sneezed out her brain. It's Amy.
I've never done that.
Are you sure? I'm pretty certain. Okay, from here on out, if you have a brain fart, instead it's a brain sneeze.
I sneeze out farts, but I don't sneeze out brains.
Sure. And on that bombshell, welcome to Planet of the Ood. It's a bit chilly, grab your coat, even though it's July. So, standard procedure to all of you Kasterpodians listening, we're going to get it out of the way now.
Hello,
Sorry.
welcome back.
So, obviously, it has been a bit of a while. Obviously, we posted on Twitter and said, we're going to have to put the podcast on hold for a moment because, let me tell you, it's been bloody busy in the house of Hudson at the moment. It's been, all good intentions this year to be like, right, we're going to stick to the podcast, we're going to do it better, etc., etc. We were really on it. We felt like we started really well. And then it's like, guys, you two are getting married this year. You got to remember, that takes a lot of planning.
Yeah, it does. And not just planning, but like every single weekend of, oh, hang on a minute, we've got to go and do bridesmaids dresses. Oh, hang on a minute, we've got to go and get rings sorted. Oh, hang on a minute, mum's got to go and get a hat and shoes and bag. And oh, hang on a minute, I've got wedding dress fitting. You have no idea how much time it takes.
This is also on top of Amy's sister, my to-be sister-in-law, and one of Amy and I's closest friends from university, who are both also getting married, which means Amy's off doing all sorts of dress fittings anyway. So it's all happening. And even just down to general like weekend stuff. Like I think genuinely, this weekend has been the first weekend probably since we last recorded, which was the end. I think it was the end of March.
Which, by the way, was the 15th of March, so middle of March.
Yeah, has been. This is like no word of a lie, and I'm not exaggerating. It's been the first weekend that we've actually had time to do the podcast because we've had so much on, be it, going back home for me, back to Lincolnshire for reason X, reason Y, and reason Z, commitments that we can't back out of, and just general stuff. Like I said, there's a lot going on for us.
I mean,
at the
like
moment.
I said, my sister's getting married literally 5 months after us, just under 6. So it's all so packed in at the moment. And then our best friend is getting married a year after that. So there is literally like no time to recuperate at the moment. And it's like my mum's birthday this weekend, and we've had like Father's Day and just like our birthdays and Rich's sister's birthday. Like we can't even tell you how busy we have been, and every weekend we've been like, God, we really, really need to get back to the podcast.
I mean, it's like I don't want to like say we're gonna do it better, but like 2024 is gonna feel borderline empty compared to this year.
I know.
Not irrelevant of the wedding. Just there's been so much going on in our lives. Stuff that you'll hear about in the future. Jesus Christ, it's been busy. So, as we always say, thank you for bearing with us. I'm so happy to be back on it today. I really am. Like, even after just watching the episode, I'm like, you know what? I'm ready to jump back on this next weekend.
Yeah. Well, next weekend. Good luck with that.
Yeah, we've also got stuff next weekend as well.
I don't think we have like another weekend free now for a while.
Maybe, hang on, I'm going to have a look at my calendar
we have
now.
the 16th of July free.
Which actually has got a podcast. Actually, do you know what? Yeah, we do. 16th of July is free.
The weekend after, we're kind of free. The weekend after, we're not. So we've got a few, but then to be fair, we are only 3 months away from the wedding now. So I almost don't want to bookmark things in with us being like so close.
Currently, what we have because I know we said at the top of the year that we'd put in our calendar specific dates for podcasts. We've almost managed to kind of realign ourselves with them
a little bit
as of this one. So hopefully the next few, I think we're going to really push to try and get done. Because I think the next couple that I could see on my calendar just now, they do look doable, unless something comes up and gets in the way, which knowing us, normally will. But we're back today. We've just sat down and watched Planet of the Ood. We've had a very busy weekend already, but today we've had the chance to just sit down and do it. So we're back. Welcome back to Escaping Kasterborous. I hope you've had a great summer so far, and I hope you've all been doing well. I hope you've all been taking care, and you're all being good and keeping cool in the heat. I know we haven't really got it at the moment, but we have done. And I hope, thank you again for bearing with us. But we're here.
I would like to know if anybody is listening to these, like binge watching them because they find us like midway through. How often do we go, hi, we've been gone for a while, welcome back? Because it's pretty much every episode.
The fact that we only did like 4 episodes last year, it was like every episode was like, sorry.
I feel like we should just ban the apologies because every episode is just us opening and going,
do you know what?
You know what? We're busy. Soz.
I think the reason why we've always been very open and transparent about this is because, not to bash on my previous employer, but whenever anything changed at What Culture, it was radio silence, and it used to annoy me to death that people were not given at least the word has completely left me. Yeah, just to actually keep them in the loop as to what's going on. And that always used to wind me up at What Culture when things would just change or things would get canned and we don't actually make that transparent with the audience. And that's why we do it, because at the end of the day, while, it's like, you don't owe us anything. We don't owe you anything. We just like making this podcast, and we love hearing the fact that you guys enjoy it. That's the long and short of it. But I would always want to be transparent with you. It's how I always do my YouTube videos. It's how I always do Twitch. I did Twitch, I should say. And I'd rather keep it that way. So even if it does sound like a broken down record, I'd rather be telling you that we apologize for being so late, rather than just pretend like nothing happened.
Yeah.
And sort of, I don't want you to perceive us as being,
crap.
But complacent in our tardiness, I should say. So, that's the reason why we always go down this route. We always start the first 10 minutes of the podcast saying, sorry for being so slow.
Yeah, because believe me, we do sit there every week and go, can we fit the podcast in this weekend? And 9 times out of 10, it's no, because we're busy. This weekend we're in London for Rich's sister's show, and then it's her graduation, but my mum's birthday, and I've got my first wedding dress fitting on Friday. So it's all a bit scary at the moment.
The weekend after we can do.
We're free, relatively.
Which is
We've
good.
got Rich's work party on the Friday, so probably
don't hold us to that.
Saturday.
But, we could still be doing it. And then
we might.
The weekend after that, I'm afraid the podcast won't be happening because I'll be busy playing Remnant 2 for the entire weekend. So, sorry
Aren't I
that.
busy the weekend after that anyway?
No, I don't think we are. Either way.
No, isn't that the weekend we're going to Hannah and Andy's? I'm not sure.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The weekend after that. Okay, anyway, let's get your coat on. Let's go to the Planet of the Ood. Series 4, Episode 3. That's the right way around. I mean, I went to the bookcase to get the Blu-ray down and I pulled out Series 3. And it's like, no, wait, we're on Series 4.
Oh, we're past that now.
I'm so behind. Christ, I need to keep on top of this. But yeah, so aired on the 19th of April 2008. So we would have been roughly about the right time if we'd recorded this when we initially were supposed to.
Good
Back in 2008, only 15 years ago.
Oh my God, that's not okay.
Good gravy. We were in year 8, getting closer to the end of the year, GCSEs was our choices for our GCSEs was starting to creep into our minds as to what we might want to do. All that sort of stuff back in old 2008. Lovely stuff. The iPhone 1 was only out for a year at that point.
Oh, grim.
Yeah, I know. Disgusting stuff. But instead, it's actually 4126, and the Doctor and Donna have gone and randomised the TARDIS controls, and they've ended up on this planet that's very cold and full of ood and business types being pricks.
As per usual,
Yeah, as per usual.
Earth never changes.
Well, exactly.
Fantastic.
And I think that's a good sort of starting point for this, and that's the general point of this episode is to it's a wrap up, because I mean we don't have any more ood centric episodes after this,
don't we?
I don't think. Obviously the ood still appear from,
yeah,
now and again. Obviously they ood Sigma, which we'll talk about later, it crops up quite a bit over the rest of the Tennant era. We have the Ood that lives on House in The Doctor's
Oh,
Wife.
yeah.
We have the Ood that ends up on Tectayun's ship in Flux. In
I've
series
literally
13.
forgotten exactly who that is.
Blanked it from your mind.
Oh, was that
At the end of the series, that's the end of Flux, when the Doctor ends up on the ship in between worlds, the Division ship.
Yeah.
And what are they called? Oh god, they've left me. Not Lapis and Lazuli, the other ones.
Teethface. No, that's not them.
No, Swarm and Azure.
Oh, yeah.
Swarm and Azure crop up and kill Tectayun, and there's just that Ood that for some reason just doesn't look right. It looks at the Ood looked a bit weird in that one, but we see the Ood from now and again, but Planet of the Ood is really where things wrap up, because obviously the Ood were a Russell T Davies concoction.
Yes.
Though this episode was written by Keith Temple. And this is kind of where their storyline wraps up, because it shows you the Ood's sort of, it's kind of the origin story, but it's very much the gritty aftermath.
It's like the rebellion
Of the origin story.
Yeah.
And yeah, as Amy says, it details the rebellion of the Ood after 200
revolt.
years of slavery. The circle must be broken, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
And yeah, going back to this, I'd almost, as we always say, almost forgotten that it was this big revolt. I did never really remember Planet of the Ood being not the tip of the iceberg, but the bottom of the iceberg for the Ood's sort of character, or the Ood's
I'm not going to
storyline.
lie, I kind of just forget about this episode on the whole. Which sounds really bad, because I do that for a lot of them. If you know me, if you've listened to this podcast, you'll know that I do not have a retentive memory for things like this. I remember mostly important stuff, but my brain is so erratic. And no, I don't have ADHD, but my brain is very erratic when it comes to facts and things. Just so I have to have lists all the time, because if there's something important, it'll be forgotten in the next 5 minutes. So things like Doctor Who episodes just don't stick with me, whereas Rich is like the sort of osmosis character that just absorbs all knowledge.
I'm a big sponge.
So I forget that this episode exists, but it's okay. Like,
it's arguably, out of Series 4, because I mean, a lot of people point to Series 4 as the pinnacle of New Who, which, I mean, we'll get back to that once we get to the end of the series. I obviously am still a big fan of Series 1. But yeah, I can agree. But I think Planet of the Ood might be one of the slightly more forgettable ones. And I think, having watched it again just now, the thing that I think tips it over the edge of being almost forgettable is the really uncertain tone until about sort of halfway, 2/3 of the way through, and it starts to align itself down a particular direction.
Yeah.
Like, I think the thing that kind of made me realise it almost immediately was when Donna whistled at the Doctor instead of going, "Doctor, there's a door." Like, she just loudly whistles even though they know they're sneaking around.
Yeah.
And it seems like this really odd, forced humour. Take something like, when early DC tried to emulate Marvel and just try to throw in jokes as and when into the story, into the dialogue to get a laugh out of the audience, and it didn't always land. It doesn't always land with Marvel, admittedly, but they were definitely better at doing it. And it just seems like this really odd sort of way to that was the point when I kind of realised it was there. But then, as you pointed out at the start, the Doctor and Donna in the TARDIS, it was a really weird,
it's really
slapstick.
awkward. It's like you watch them having this interaction, and it's kind of like unnecessarily filled with this weird tension that's not like sexual tension or anything, because obviously we know that that's not how the Doctor Donna operate. But like, you're kind of sitting there and you're like, just like take a few steps back from each other and kind of like get on with it, because I kind of was sat there thinking, oh, I don't like this interaction, because she was all kind of like, oh, this, oh, this, oh, this, and the Doctor's like, oh my God, this, and it's kind of like, what, like, is this supposed to be another one of those moments where they've been on journeys which we don't see, or is this immediately after the last episode? Because, I mean, I've completely forgotten what the last episode
Fires
was.
of Pompeii.
There you go. So is this like immediately after or not? Because it doesn't seem like it would be, because her general demeanour is so different to what it was in Fires of Pompeii It almost seems like they've had that time, a bit like Rose and the Doctor did, a bit like Martha and the Doctor did, that we kind of like understand that they've had time together, because you can see them like bouncing off each other a bit more. But I don't know, it didn't feel natural in this episode. Like, last episode felt so much more natural than this. Like, they were making pips at each other, jokes at each other, but this time felt so forced. And I think you're right. I think that's down to the pacing of the episode, and probably just like the writer kind of thinking, okay, I need to make the Dr. Donna character be a bit more bouncy, a bit more energetic. And so they kind of forced it in at times, like you said, with the whistle. Like, I literally sat there and went, why the hell did she whistle at him and not just go, Doctor, there's a door? Because it was just the opportunity, like you said, it was just the opportunity to make a joke. And it was kind of like, yeah, I get it, but also not. Like, there are much more natural ways in dialogue to get jokes in. Like the, oh no, we're not married. No. Like, that's fine.
Absolutely.
Because that works. It's a natural progression of the conversation. But to be sneaking around a unit and then go, like, wolf whistle, is just, it just didn't, I don't know, didn't gel.
I guess it might be sort of testament to Keith Temple, the writer, not necessarily nailing the Dr. Donna dynamic, because at this point, you know, when it was being written, there was only the Runaway Bride to go on, really. Obviously, Russell would have had an idea as to what the overarching arc would be, but old Keith had to just kind of wing it a bit and try and, you know, Catherine Tate is a very, very capable comedian. But this script doesn't really lend itself to that. When you're saying about the stuff at the start in the TARDIS, I always think of that, I don't know, I can't think of whatever episode it is, but that it cuts to a shot top down of the TARDIS, like almost the camera moving down the rotor, and there's the Doctor and Rose, and the Doctor's just hammering at the controls, and he's like screaming something, and there's a crash, and they both kind of lean forwards and then fall backwards onto the floor, and then they both start laughing. Like, that worked so well to sort of explain that sort of casualness of the couple at that point, couple at that point, and also how comfortable the Doctor feels and how comfortable Rose is when the Doctor's having to use a bloody hammer to get the TARDIS to do as it's told, and she just laughs it off. It's like, that's fine. This felt like such a forced scene that if I were Graham Harper, the director at the time for that episode, I'd have been like, Catherine, can you just tone that down by like 2 or 3 notches, because you're forcing this like happiness through gritted teeth and fear in your eyes. Like, it just doesn't quite work. So that kind of, Donna goes through so many emotions and emotions in this episode. She goes from being, oh, it's absolutely bastard freezing, to why are you so sad? Oh, I don't like it. And then suddenly they're sneaking about and she's being all bubbly again, and then she's bawling her eyes out at Ood singing, and then she's kind of all bitchy and slapping
it's
about.
It's very odd, isn't it?
What's it? So it's like she's a bit all over the place in this story.
It kind of feels like they didn't really, like you said, have the character nailed down, because I know that Donna is a bit erratic in that way. Like, she can go from being this kind of like, oh, don't mess with me, sunshine kind of character. But she also, like you said, in like one breath, she would suddenly go from being like, I don't want to do this anymore, to being like, yeah, this is fun. And it was kind of like, where was that natural progression? And I get the element of her fighting for the Ood's well-being, because that made sense from a character like her. I think you get that emotional development come through okay, but it's the flip-flopping between her emotional standpoint. Like you said, like 1 minute she's crying in the cage, and then the next minute she's kind of like, no, I'm fine, I'm going to carry on, all this, that. And I don't know, it just felt a bit disjointed. And there were moments throughout with every single character where I felt that. The guard who just decides to play claw machine with the Doctor, that was a very odd sequence, and I get it that it was a bit of time for that action. But like, what was it focused so much on him?
Just shutting Donna into that that crate, like, the fact that they immediately went after, you know, what's it rocked up and stopped Matey with the claw to kill the Doctor, and they just handcuffed him. It's like, well, then why didn't you do that to Donna first? I know that it's a narrative point to put them in a bit of peril. You've got Donna trapped in a box with 3 Ood that have got red eye, and then you've got David Tennant in a gigantic claw machine, and it's like, yeah, okay, but
what
why?
was the need for that?
I think they had to try and inject peril into this episode in the same way that matey guard who sets up the canisters puts his gas mask on. 4 Ood rock in, you don't see anything happen, then all of a sudden he's dropped his gas mask, he's not dead, and then he gets gassed to death. It's like, okay, what happened there?
I mean, you could obviously see the Ood carrying it at one point, where he goes, give me my mask back, which makes you assume that they've stolen it off him. But also, we don't get, like, you could have taken a little bit off of other areas to add to different scenes, and it feels like if you'd have had an interaction between him getting wrestled for his gas mask, it would have shown you a little bit more of that rebellion side of things, with them not just outright just killing them all the same way, like them actually putting them into these different situations because they understand.
It's like, we want to especially make this guy suffer. Yeah,
and it just shows you this kind of weird, crazy side to several different people. Like, you get the lead guard who goes that crazy face, and then there was that one point when David was in the cage with them, and all of a sudden he just goes, "What are you gonna do? Lock me in a cage?" at the thing, and it was kind of like, what the hell was that about?
It's a bit weird. I think from what it seems, from what I know, the original plot for this was a lot darker, and one of the things I was thinking over the course of watching it again was this episode could work to be a lot darker. It's a slavery episode. We've had the Ood, but they were introduced as a slave race, and that was about it. The devil became the overshadowing presence of the Impossible Planet in a Satan Pit back in series 2. The Ood didn't really have a chance to shine on their own, and this was a story to tell, not just let's bring back the monster and make the main threat be something else that's controlling them, because even though it is the Ood brain dishing out orders to most of them to just be rabid and red-eyed, and then to Ood Sigma to be the Ood Alpha and just be the smart boy playing the long game. They wanted to tell this Ood story, and watching it again, it's like this could have been a much grittier, much darker episode of Who to really make the Ood stand out as their own thing. It would have probably been a much more memorable episode to have played out in such a dark way. Some of the more experimental episodes of Who have worked the best. Sometimes they flop. I mean, Love and Monsters was a flop.
Yeah, but that's because it was a children idea transpired into a kind of semi... I get that one because it was a competition.
The creature itself, not so much. I think the way that they executed it with Peter Kay and shagging a paving slab and so on. Like, I'm still...
Elton.
In the process of writing a piece and doing a video about Love and Monsters. Things like Sleep No More, I'm looking forward to going back and watching again. I want to do a video on that. That's the one with the Sandmen with Peter Capaldi. You probably won't remember it.
No.
It's the one that's all found footage.
No.
It was a really interesting direction for Doctor Who to go in, and it fell flat on its arse. But then on the flip side, Blink, Midnight.
Yeah.
Some of the best episodes of Who ever created, and they were going down a very different route to what they were used to. So experimentation, it's always a risk, but sometimes it can pay off.
Sorry.
No, go.
I think one of my favourite experimental episodes is... oh, God, I literally can't remember the name of it, but it's Matt Smith, Amy and Rory, and it's is it the little boy Alfie, or what's his name?
Night Terrors.
Night Terrors,
the
where
one
she
with the
turns
doll's
into
house.
the doll. That's such a good experimental, scenario to be in, because it's all in the mind of this little alien boy, but... It's such a creepy, hard... I literally am terrified of that episode, and...
You're dreading watching that one again, aren't you?
I mean, I love it, but also, I'm literally creepy crawlies. But yeah, so some things like that can work, but this just didn't feel like it pushed the boat out enough. It was very... we got that tease near the beginning of, Warehouse 15, etc. But it didn't really feel like you had... any idea of who the Ood were, or like you said, we didn't really get much introduction to them during the Satan Pit, and we still didn't get much introduction to them. All we know about them is they are a slave race who have been adapted to be this technological sort of slave hive mind thing, but they're a hive mind anyway, and it was just it was a bit flat and a bit odd. It was kind of you don't really have
back they pushed back on the original scripts from Keith Temple to because they were too dark. But it's like, I think that would have worked. It obviously, the darkness got toned down and the jokes got added in, and it kind of there's a baseline there. It's not an overtly offensive episode in terms of just generally being bad. I don't mean offenses in, slavery and stuff, but like, it's not bad. But it's like this episode could have been even better. And as much as the Ood did get accepted into sort of Who hearts across the fandom, you gotta love seeing the Ood. They're just there's this really lovely race. They're amazingly designed. The actual animatronic heads are very, very good for the time. They are, they're a childhood memory of a lot of people who enjoy the show. So this could have been that episode to really nail them down as like legend status, to have one of the darkest, one of the saddest sort of technically villain arcs in Doctor Who. Planet of the Ood could have been, dare I say it, that sort of drawing parallels to obviously slavery that we know in much older times, but even down to things like concentration camps, and I mean, the Doctor back to things like
vaguely mentions it, where he goes like, "Who do you think made your clothes?" And that was another kind of weird interaction that I felt didn't really land. Like, especially
since the Doctor brushes it off so easily when Donna takes offense to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much like she's like, "Oh, the human race and his slaves," and he goes, "Oh, it's not that different from your time," and she goes, "Oi, watch it," and he goes, "Who do you think made your clothes?" And she's like, "Blah blah blah, don't take a pop at me," kind of thing. And that's it. That's the only
Doctor
commentary.
should have said, "Well, I'm not wrong, am I?"
Yeah, no, that's the only commentary we get on it, and he sort of goes, "All right, sorry," and she just goes, "Spaceman," as if it's just a little joke, and it's kind of like, yeah, but
again, I think that is the bit where they had to tone it down, because I think maybe in his original script that was much more of a "Who made your clothes?" and she kind of goes, "Oh," and he's like, "Yeah, exactly." It's dark, but like I said, Doctor Who sometimes does its best by pushing the boat out, and it's gotten away with some visual stuff that's a bit nasty that again we'll get to. Why not push to do something like that? I mean, Rosa in series 11 did a lot in terms of just showing it how it was, like Ryan getting bitch slapped by that guy for picking up that woman's hat, because obviously that was how black people were treated back then. The rest of the episode was not great,
questionable.
But they went full out on it. They didn't hold back, and it's like,
but
good,
the bits that worked well about that episode were the historical elements, not the alien.
Not the alien that was. I don't even remember what his arc was. It's so dumb.
Who knows?
But like, this episode could have been so much better if they really went into, look at how terrible humans are. Look at how much the Ood is suffering. Are you at all surprised they're fighting back? Because you're kind of in this weird position by the time you get to the end. Obviously, you are on the side of the Ood, because the way that the scenes with the Doctor and Donna and the unprocessed Ood in the cage, Ood Sigma showing support for what they're doing. The Doctor Donna friend peril section works perfectly because it's perfectly set up and perfectly resolved. The other bits, not so much. They're a lot more forced. Like, you're kind of left in this weird position by the end. It's like, who am I rooting for? Is it really rooting for the Ood, or are they planning an uprising to take over, or are they planning an uprising for their freedom? They should have lent more into, you need to be siding with the Ood here. Yeah, really, there isn't much of a question by the time you get to the point where the Doctor and Donna and Ood Sigma make it into Warehouse 15. Then, fair enough, but I think they should have lent into that a lot sooner, made it a lot heavier. I mean, the fact that you have when all the buyers get murdered by the Ood, and you've got that bloke who's being a prick. He's like, we make different colours, and then he, gets a sphere to the face. Lean into that.
Yeah.
Like that, I think that would have made this episode so much more heavy hitting and really putting across the narrative that Keith Temple wanted to do, and solidifying the Ood as this race that you needed to care for.
Yeah. I have a question.
Yes.
Right. So obviously Ood Sigma playing the long game, turning what's his face into an Ood, all good.
Yeah.
But who was the guy that died like first thing in the episode was obviously in charge of this facility, blah de blah de blah.
Yeah.
But how long has Ood Sigma been involved with this guy, and who is he? Like, is he in charge of the whole operation? Like,
I would
is he
assume
just top
Mr. Halpin
dog?
is the top of the chain, because he did say, like, oh, I've had to fly in all the way here to do this.
Yeah,
Like, he's
so,
the
like-
guy who's been sitting behind his desk at Ood topmost headquarters, beating his dick and drinking hair tonic.
So-
like, that's all the dude does until things go wrong.
Yeah.
So I
So
assume
Ood
matey
Sigma's
who
been with
died.
him for a while, right?
Ood Sigma's been at his side for a long time, and that's
Mm-hmm.
probably why the brain was like, well, this guy's the closest to the top.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're going to give him all the beans to get stuff done.
Yeah.
Hence why, as the doctor says, the patience and the intellect from the brain got focused into Ood Sigma. Hence why he's the top
Mm-hmm.
dog. And then everyone else just got the rabid red eye, let's just kill people.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's especially since he just goes straight into his office and they don't really give him much of a
Introduction.
Like, if they turned around, maybe I missed the line, but if they turned around and said, you know, the head of the facility has just been murdered by an Ood, hence why I've had to get you in, sir.
No,
Like,
they
and
didn't.
it'd be like,
He just kind
I
of
should
comes
be,
up and
you know,
goes-
I should be sipping cocktails and shagging Ood women or something at this point, not here on a cold planet and
Yeah.
drinking hair tonic, you know.
I tell you what, one thing I did enjoy though, a very kind of like throwaway point in the middle, was when she was demonstrating the different voices that the Ood could have, like the normal voice or the comedy voice. She goes to the middle one and she goes, something for the gentleman, and he goes, oh, it's lovely to see you. And Donna's eyes could not roll any higher, like, and I quite enjoyed that tiny little like few seconds of acknowledgement that it's kind of like, oh, for God's sake, we're in 41 whatever it is and we're still being sexist pricks, like.
But I mean, it goes to show that in Doctor Who canon, it may be 41:26, but Fox still hasn't cancelled The Simpsons.
Yeah, literally.
Dan Castellaneta is full Futurama head in a jar, and he's sick to death of annoyed grunts.
But yeah,
I wonder
quite
if
enjoyed that.
I wonder if the BBC had to get any kind of licensing for that. I know
Probably.
that it's just a throwaway joke.
Oh,
but
they would have done.
the Fox network, I'm sure they'd have absolutely come down to the BBC for something like that.
Did Fox own Simpsons back then?
Yeah.
Oh,
Fox
right.
has always Simpsons has always been part of
Oh,
Fox.
yeah, no, it's Disney that owns Fox now, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Disney owns everything.
And they make it very clear that Disney owned The Simpsons, and they try to play it off like they're still mocking Fox like they were in the 90s. And it's like, guys, come on. It's been 30 years. Just
Yeah.
give it up.
Yeah.
Just give it up, man. We'll start the Escaping Springfield Simpsons podcast at some point in the future.
No, we won't. No, we won't. I know
I've watched it
nothing
so
about
many times.
Simpsons, really.
I'll just sit here and talk to myself about it then.
Yeah, sure.
I
Why
hope
not?
you all enjoy Escaping Springfield. That'll be fun. Speaking, you know what, actually, on the crane stuff, we had one of the more substantial CGI chase sequences in Doctor Who. And do you know what? I think, apart from the wobbly establishing shot, because when the Doctor and Donna first enter that
Warehouse shipping
warehouse full
facility.
of things, there's like a spray painted number on one of the
Shipping containers.
containers on the left, and if you watch it and go back, you can see a really wobbly transition of where they've masked in and tracked in the matte painting behind them. So that was a bit wobbly. I'd never seen that before until today. However, the scene of the Doctor being chased by the crane claw was actually pretty good. There was actually one shot that when I was watching it, I was thinking, do you know what? That almost looks like they got a physical prop in for that particular shot. So I was quite surprised at that, when especially
Yeah.
since
Was that when he was laying right on the floor, did you say?
it was towards the end. You just see it very briefly in the back of the shot, and it looks like it's actually a physical prop.
Oh, see, I thought that when he was laying down on the floor and it was coming down from the ceiling towards him, it did look almost physical. I was kind of like, oh.
Yeah.
Is it physical? Is it not physical?
Like, that was quite a good sequence. Like, the actual the execution of that sequence, but of course we've already covered the fact that we're like,
I quite like the way he was like parkouring off of the.
I bet David had a great time doing that. It's
That's
like,
what I was
just
thinking.
pretend you're being chased by a crane that can pick up
Giant
things like
crane.
10 times
I
your
can
size.
just imagine the director off screen going, "Roll, David, roll," and he's like,
Oh, that wasn't David. That 100% wasn't
"Oh,
David.
absolutely not." But same diff.
Oh, man. So, yeah, so we get to... Let's just sort of jump to the end, and we have the Ood brain. I think they've done a very good job of setting all this up. Like I said, I think there's a baseline to it that works really well, that they just kind of had to bastardize, for lack of a better word, for the sake of toning it down for TV and throwing in the humour that, you've got David and Catherine. The pair of them have worked together on projects a lot like before and after Doctor Who, and obviously coming back to Doctor Who this year. They've done tons of stuff together, so they work incredibly well, and yet they had to force all these random bits in. Weird. We get to the end, and we finally see the Ood brain for the first time. The weird that matte painting has got a really weird FOV.
Yeah.
The wall with all
It's
the
like-
vents in it and stuff.
It's almost like a
properly,
bit fish-eyed, but like
Yeah.
inverted fish-eye.
They've
It's kind
really
of odd.
pulled back the FOV on that render, so it looks really peculiar. When you look at the field of view of the camera they used to capture the live action stuff. So,
But then I suppose they had to fit the whole thing in to give you the scale of the scenario.
yeah,
and,
but it's like the second shot of it where it's a lot closer, the perspective is perfect. So I feel like they maybe had to shoot a pickup one, or they just had to, or they didn't build enough of a 3D like scene to accommodate for that wide of a shot. So they just had to, yeet out
Fill it in.
the FOV to fill in the space. It looks a bit weird. And of course we have Dr. Ryder, I should say, revealing himself as a friend of the Ood. He drops down the signal to make things worse and blah, 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 blah. And old Mr. Halpin boots him into the brain.
Just yeets him.
I'd forgotten how big the brain was. I thought I don't remember it being as big as that.
But then again,
when
it's
we
sort of
first
like a
watched it.
perspective, like because like you said, the field of view is so far out, it doesn't look anywhere near as big. And then he falls onto it, and he's like this pipsqueak of a little man. And it's kinda
Yeah,
like,
some of the shots of it,
continuity.
they just look a bit.
But
the
also,
perspective's a bit
how
strange.
strong do you have to be to pick up a man by his coat and throw him over a banister?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's not.
Especially since Mr. Halpin was already starting to go a bit wobbly because of his transformation. But this leads quite nicely into a question from Red Soul on Twitter, who asks, how did we react to Dr. Ryder being consumed into the hive mind? Do you think it hurt?
I mean, it looked a bit crap on the CGI side of things, but
Yeah, and also it makes no sense for him to just get eaten.
Smushed?
Like, a brain doesn't open and
no.
chompy like that.
Yeah, it was weird. It was kind of like he would surely just be on top of it and be like, how do I get out? Because yeah, it was like, oh, I'm being absorbed by a brain. Okay. Unless Ood brains are different to human brains.
Yeah, it would assumedly be a pretty soft landing. I think maybe what they could have done for that is they'd have shown him falling and then have cut to that low angle looking up at the fence, and then it had a couple of flashes to show that he got electrocuted by that circle, for example. Maybe that would have worked a bit better. But
Yeah,
then
'cause
I would say they'd have to cut back to see a fried doctor on the surface of the brain, but they could just not do that. At least it would be a more obvious death, but I think they went down the gruesome route with it.
You almost kind of assume that the brain would want to be protecting itself from anything else that would want to stifle it or hurt it or anything like that. So you would almost assume that it would use that electro field to kind of zap him before he reached the brain so that it wouldn't contaminate it, maybe. Because you do wonder what effect it would have absorbing this guy into the brain. I wonder if maybe because he was a friend of the Ood that they kind of were like, it'll be fine.
They transmit his consciousness into one of the fresh, unharvested Ood.
Yeah,
That'd be
sure.
weird. I don't know. It's quite strange.
It's odd.
But then we get to Mr. Halpin himself actually transforming into an Ood.
Grim.
And we do have a few questions regarding this in particular. So Stephen on Twitter asked, I've always wondered how no doctor noticed the man was slowly changing species. So not necessarily, he put it's not really a question, but it's a good point. It's not specifically the doctor, just a doctor. He was transforming into another species.
I mean, maybe he hadn't gone to a doctor during that time. We don't know what healthcare is like in 4126. It could be all AI and automated. He could just take shots to keep him healthy. Or
Well, I mean, mate, he's taking shots to get his hair back because
maybe you should try it.
I can vouch for this. Yeah, he's so obsessed with his hair, and that's the easy way for Ood Sigma to be like, I wonder how that must have started. Ood Sigma's like, all right, Baldy, I've got something to help you here. Take this drink and you're going to look great. I mean, to be honest, with a man who seems to be so cocksure about himself that I'm sure will be super duper conscious about the fact he's going bald, he will take anything he can get. And I said, I can vouch on this because I'm going bald. You'll have seen it. However, I don't exist in the same realm as Dr. Halpin because I don't care. I have accepted defeat on this, and
we all have.
While there are a lot of while there are a lot of
that's not wrong though.
Shut up. While there are obviously lots and lots of products out there to help you to help you try and escape baldness. I personally have not gone down any route to do it. Even if it has been offered up to me on a silver platter, I'm going to have to segue here. Because, I did, as you may know, if you've been watching my videos on YouTube, back when I reviewed Legend of the Sea Devils, I did a sponsorship on it from Surfshark. And it was okay. It was a bit of an interesting aftermath of that particular sponsorship for various reasons. I won't go into specifics, but I got paid and I'm not doing it again. Not interested. But I had this guy, he emailed me, he messaged me on Instagram. I don't know whether he got a hold of me on Twitter as well, I don't know. But he was properly keeping the pressure on because he has a hair clinic. And he was like, oh, love your content. It's like, right, Sure, okay. Do. And he's like, we can do a little, help each other out. You can promote my work and what I do on your YouTube channel, and I can help you with your problem. And I'm like, I've been meaning to tweet about this for ages, but I'm like, do you know what, dude?
Not everybody sees it as a problem.
That's the thing. I'm like, look, yes, it's very obvious that I'm going bald. And I'll tell you what, if I ever see pictures of me from the back now, I don't reel like I used to. It really doesn't bother me anymore. It is what it is. Thanks, Dad. But, it doesn't bother me. And the idea that it's a problem, and he just kept hounding me about it. He literally got a picture of me off Instagram and he photoshopped in proper, Josh Brown hair. Awful. And it was like, dude, what are you doing? This isn't going to sell me on flying to Turkey and going to your hair clinic in exchange for some YouTube sponsorship.
Bold of him to assume that you are so self-conscious that you need to have hair. I feel like masculinity is not attached to hair follicles. I would just like to say that for everybody out there.
If it's attached to hair follicles, I'm masculine to within the top 1% of all men. Just not on my head.
Literally. I kind of feel like there are so many people out there who suit baldness that literally don't give a damn about why.
Exactly.
Why would you care? Well, it's not. It doesn't pertain to your person. And I know that it can be an issue for people, and I'm not bagging on people that are self-conscious for any reason. You. If you're worried about hair loss and that's something that causes you angst, then you have free liberty to do what you want to make yourself feel better. But for you personally, he shouldn't be shoving it down your throat that you it's just the
assumption and the fact that he's like, I'm going to help you with your problem. It's like, since when have I turned around on any platform and said,
my hair
I'm
loss
losing
is a problem.
my hair, it's a problem. Seriously, dude, not everyone thinks in that same way. And the fact that he kept hounding me about it, oh, did you get my next email? Oh, did you get my message? It's like, I don't, mate, if I've not responded to you, in case it hasn't been very made abundantly clear by the radio silence on my side, I'm not interested. Mm-hmm. Please leave me alone. I know that I could also say that to him, but it also kind of opens the dialogue of, I don't care. Mm-hmm. Just leave me alone. It's not a problem. Shut up. Don't turn me into a nude.
But anyway.
Yeah. So the second part of this is obviously the fact that Matey Boy does indeed transform. And
I wonder, going back to your original point, I wonder if it started because, you said Ood Sigma's playing the long game. I wonder if, to start with, he fed him hair loss tonic to be like, oh, do you fancy some of this?
Just
like,
to play with him.
Yeah, just
just
put
to
it in his
mess
drink.
with him.
Just this, just that, like giving him water and being like, there you go, and it had hair loss tonic in it. So then he could be like, here, have this hair tonic. And just like, that would not surprise me in the slightest.
Sigma, like, you know that meme of the dude with the muscles and the massive chin?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's like Ood Alpha. Like, here he is, pulling the wool over Mr. Halpen's
Sigma
eyes.
big balls, you know.
Yeah. Ood Sigma dick. Wait.
Ood Sigma big brain. Just his good
just-
old wrinkly brain.
Ood Sigma balls.
Ood Sigma balls. Anyway. Yeah,
That's a new
that was
t-shirt.
just...
So Mr. Halpen does his wee transformation sequence, and I'll tell you what, peeling back his skin.
That was vile.
I remember when I first saw that, and I was convinced, because obviously the Ood is a lot paler, and it's got the big crease down the middle of his head. It does look a bit like a dick from the back. Like when you see the back of an Ood's head, it just looks like a cock. It looks a bit like that. When I first saw that, I thought, he's literally peeling the flesh away to his skull.
Yeah, that's what I thought. It's
And
grim,
the fact
isn't it?
you can see the hair follicles and the pinkness of the flesh beneath the skin. It's like, that's pretty gruesome. I've got to give him that. And then it's followed up by the pretty wanky, I'm puking up some tentacles here.
Intestines.
Which kind of works, kind of doesn't. It's like, yeah,
I mean,
okay.
they could have almost... I know they wanted to get it across in a much more obvious way, because obviously, like you said, when he peels off his skin, you almost think he's like going down to his skull. I guess they kind of wanted to make it very obvious that he was becoming an Ood, so they had to fit the tentacles in there somewhere.
Yeah.
But you almost wonder whether they could have done the peel thing, have it cut back to a shot of like the Dr. O'Donnell looking all like weirded out, and then he pops up from the bottom of the frame and he is Ood. It would have done the same thing.
Again, they kind of lean into the body horror stuff. I just kind of thought, I was terrified he was going to break out into his own rendition of Rock DJ by Robbie Williams, because that music video used to scare me to death.
If anybody hasn't seen the music video for that.
hated that. I've said this before, I was a massive wimp as a kid. So seeing Robbie Williams like peel his flipping skin off
God, it's
in that music
awful.
video, I hated that. Could you just imagine that? Like, oh, I'm gonna have to edit this now. He leans down to pull his head, you just hear boom, tum, boom, tum, boom, tum, boom. It's like, oh my God, he's breaking out to Robbie with Ood Sigma. There's that, the gif of Ood Sigma dancing I used on the tweet for this. It's just Rock DJ all over again. Oh my goodness
Incredible.
me. I mean, Nathan on Twitter asks, what's the more gruesome transformation, Mr. Halpin in this or Dr. Constantine from The Empty Child?
Oh, there's
That's a
no question.
no-brainer.
Dr. Constantine takes it every time.
I think if they'd have done something pretty nasty in a front-facing shot with Mr. Halpin like they did with Dr. Constantine, then I think it maybe would have been a hell of a lot scarier. Although I feel like if they kind of merged his mouth into his nose for a split second, he'd have a massive vagina on his face.
Maybe they did and they went, nah, sorry, it's too clitoral.
That looks too much like a big clitoris.
It's, no, sorry, vulva everywhere. No, not happening. I don't think they could have got away with that.
Mr. Halpin, more like Mr. Clitface.
Hey, look, it's punch lasagna energy. It's
Planet of
floppy ham sandwich.
Planet of the Gammon Hangers. Good gravy. I mean, there
It's
we go.
beef curtains.
And there we go. There's the smut. You've been waiting for
Put
it.
your favourite slang terms for a vulva down in the comments below, peeps, because I want to know about it.
Tweet us at Kasterpod with your favourite parallels.
YouTube just
Your
like, what is
favourite-
happening? Ban, ban, ban.
What are all these ham sandwiches doing in the comments?
Ham salad, delicious.
Oh God! So yeah, Mr. Halpin's transformation was not bad. It's the part of the episode you always remember because it does kind of come out of left field because you never think it's that.
Well, I don't
just
know.
think
I kind
that-
of forgot about it.
You just think that old Sigma Balls is just poisoning him.
Old Sigma
really,
Big
don't
Balls.
you? Sigma
Yeah.
Big Balls.
I mean-
But instead he's turning him into a dude. It's
I
like,
forgot.
Okay.
I had to ask you though, didn't I? I was kind of like, what is he giving him to drink? And you were like, he's turning him into an Ood, remember? And I was like,
Vodka.
no, I don't remember.
He's getting
that.
absolutely plastered.
Getting wankered.
And then, of course, they all start singing and it's all lovely. And then, obviously, when they're all stood outside the TARDIS, it kind of wraps up quite nicely. All the ships are coming home. The Ood are done ski. Hence why I think we only ever see the Ood in dribs and drabs from here on out. Usually in a slightly less slavery thing and more just like, I'm helping out. I'm quite happy. Kind of while obviously House in the Doctor's wife is a malevolent being. When he's with Tech Taeyoon, for example, he seems quite happy. He's chilling. I'm sure they take care of him. I'm sure that the is it aunt and uncle or mother and father in the Doctor's wife as well as House, and then the woman who becomes.
I think
it is
know.
aunt and uncle or something.
I think it's.
I'm sure.
And uncle.
I'm sure they treat him well. I'm sure they like him. Oh yeah, because he's called nephew, isn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, it is aunt and uncle then. I'm sure they treat him well, so it's a nice ending for them. And then obviously they all raise their hands and they all have a nice little sing song, which old Zappa fan asks on Twitter. The end scene, the little ood mini Glastonbury as they sing for Donna. Cute, emotional, or sickeningly schmaltzy.
Do you want to try that again?
Cute, emotional, or sickeningly schmaltzy.
Schmaltzy's a great word.
It is a great word.
It's like a bit of both. It's kind of this nice send-off.
All of the above.
Yeah. It's kind of this nice send-off moment. It's nice for Doctor and Donna to like hear that song, because I know the Doctor couldn't hear it throughout, and it changes from the captivity song
Very
to
somber,
the freedom song, which is a really nice tune. It's very well written. Is it Murray Gold that did the Freedom song?
Yes, I believe so. Because we hear it multiple times throughout the course of this era.
But it also was a chance for them to do the whole, the Dr. Donna, your song is ending, blah-de-blah-de-blah.
Yeah.
Which we know is kind of the very obvious, the Dr. Donna, blah, 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 blah. So that was a very apt description, wasn't it? Blah, blah, blah. So... yeah, it was alright. I mean... yeah,
I think I would still stand by. I think that particular scene, I never saw it as overtly schmaltzy. I can understand why you could construe it as being it's a bit cringe, but I think if they'd have gone down the direction of let's show how much humanity sucks and how much you guys need to be feeling for the Ood, that moment of relief when they get to sing their old little hearts out, would hit a lot better if they were given that opportunity throughout the course of the episode. It still works as it ends, but it could have potentially been it could have hit harder if they'd have framed the episode differently.
Sorry, I just had to Google the definition of schmaltzy because I've literally
never
heard that word before.
You've never heard the word schmaltzy?
No, not really. It's excessively sentimental is what it means.
So basically our wedding day.
Grim.
We'll have a nice schmaltzy evening afterwards. I'm gonna go full Ood on you.
You're not with them tentacles. You're not. Bloody hell! I don't want them flipping about me vulva. I don't want no vulva on vulva action.
I'm gonna start calling it my little Ood now.
No, thank you.
There you go, gents.
Grim.
If that's how you want to impress your woman.
No, thank you.
She opens her legs and goes, wow, Mr. Halpern, nice to meet you.
Wow, Ood to Ood.
I see that hair loss tonic is working pretty well.
From one vulva to the other.
Oh, God. Right, let's answer a few more questions on Twitter, shall we?
Sorry, to YouTube. Sorry if you ban us, it's fine, but like...
I'm sure that the old matey at YouTube HQ is not listening this far through. As soon as you got to punch lasagna, they were out.
Yeah.
Jedi Spartan on Twitter. Are there any monsters, villains, species from the original Russell T Davies era you hope to return in Series 14 and beyond? Honestly, for that, I mean, just based on what we've been talking about, I mean, that's a wider question for the era. I like seeing the Ood crop up just in practice, as long as they're not being whipped and beaten and abused. Like, they're a lovely creature. You just want to give one a hug. Mm-hmm. Provided it doesn't have red
sloppy, but...
I'm not kissing it.
No, but like, do you not imagine
giving like
that
French
they're like...
kissing an Ood, there's like 15 tongs in
Do
your
you not
mouth.
imagine that their tentacles are just like a bit wet? Like, that's how I picture it, because the sound
like stirring a pot of mac and cheese.
No, but it is like the sound of that one eating that guy on the floor that sounded like Zoidberg was very sloppy.
Oh my God. I just how to ruin Planet of the Ood. Replace every Ood line with the line from Zoidberg in Futurama. A buffet. Oh, if only I brought my wallet.
It's free. Me.
Oh my goodness me.
I don't, in answer to that question, I don't know. I feel like there's been so many recurrent enemies in all of Doctor Who that it's hard to kind of nail down one that should come back, because if they've been a one-off, I feel like it's for a reason, because they just haven't hit as well. Like, obviously we know the Daleks come back, the Cybermen come back, the Weeping Angels, they've been over
the Weeping Angels is exhibit
now.
as I've always said, is exhibit A of you don't always need to bring villains back when they did a one and done and did so well. The Ood needed this story because they were overshadowed by the devil before. So,
and
the
Sontarans have been done several times. And
speaking of which,
there's all sorts of kind of elements of repetitive monsters that work well and ones that don't. So I haven't really got any preferences. We know that the Daleks and the Cybermen will probably make reappearances at some point.
Yeah, just a bit.
That's just inevitable with Doctor Who, really. But there's nothing that I would sit there and go, oh my God, I'm so glad they brought this monster back. Because it's
like I said, any kind of nod to this, and the Ood are perfect, you can just have them there because you can. Like, there's canonically, it makes sense if they've got, you've got a bunch of people and they've got an Ood. Why not? It's like going to the shelter and getting the really old cat just to give it a nice home.
Oh, baby.
Do that with an Ood. Maybe we should call our cat Ood.
No.
What if it's got a horrible deformity and has weird vagina face?
Then we're not calling it Ood. That's more offensive. If poor catos, how dare you?
But that actually ties quite nicely into Duckling's question, which is, would you like to see the Ood return in the new series?
Yeah.
And what's your favourite Ood story? What's your favourite Ood story?
What?
I think there's only
two.
Well, yeah, exactly.
It would be Satan Pit.
Impossible Planet, Satan Pit. Yeah, I'd agree with you on that one.
It's just a much better, well-rounded story arc.
I think Planet of the Ood would have beaten it if, again, they'd have gone down a much darker route, which I'm sure is what was originally intended, but they had to tone it back for TV and the BBC getting in the way.
And children.
Yeah, children. And yet Matey Boy just peels his skull off because...
Yeah, sure, why not?
Why not? Absolutely. But Amy did a nice little segue there because, of course, we do have the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky.
Oh, yeah, it's a two-parter.
Coming up next. It is a two-parter with the Atmos system. Even though you're saying Atmos system, but, whatever.
Well, it's like, I was watching...
We have Unit are back in a big way. For the first time in New Who, I think.
Saying Atmos system is like when we watched Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse yesterday and it was chai tea. You're basically saying TT.
Yeah, exactly.
And things like that.
Thankfully not Across the Spider-Verse spoiler, but go see it. It's amazing.
Oh, it's really good.
And of course we have Martha Jones back because, there was no doubting that Freema Agyeman was going to be back for this series. And then I've just reminded myself that after this two-parter, it's the Doctor's daughter. Because obviously Martha's with them for that episode.
Oh, yeah.
Which...
Oh, I like that episode.
I do as well. So, yeah.
Okay.
And it's not just because we're looking at Georgia Moffat.
No. But, I mean, good on you, David.
And then,
I
was going to say, they've both done well for each other.
Having your wife play your daughter. Oh, kink.
And herself being the daughter of Peter Davison, the Fifth Doctor. Wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey. But that is going to be next time.
That means,
here on Escaping
at least if the
Kasterborous.
next episode is a two-parter, if we're still crap and can't do a lot, at least it saves us a bit of ball ache because we're doing 2 episodes in one.
Sure, you get double your money so we can take twice as long to record it.
Yeah. Not that we don't anyway.
No, but I think we're in a good position, I think, to actually get at least a couple of these episodes in over the next couple of weeks. So we're going to really stick to it.
You might hear from us twice more.
I'm sure we might be able to get 1 or 2 more in.
I'm not going to push it much further than that.
Stay tuned to the old Twitter at Kasterpod. And also, if you haven't already, please go onto my YouTube channel. Just search for me and watch my video about Doctor Who The Ride. Because I spent an absolute bloody age on that. And I'm really proud of it. The reaction has been really, really positive. So thank you if you have watched it. If you haven't, please go to my YouTube channel and watch What If Disney Made a Doctor Who Ride.
Because trust me,
I had this idea.
I
spent ages making it.
Ages. Without me, up in his office, just going, hi, I love you, bye, and just leaving me on my own for days on end. So if you do one thing, feel my sorrow and please just watch it.
Make all the time I spent abandoning Amy worth it.
Trust me, it's a really good video though. And I know I'm biased, but it is really good.
I mean, she's not biased. If I made a bad video, she'd tell me.
If it was crap, I'd be like, Rich, do you really think that's worth it? I mean, he gets me to vet all his videos before he posts them most of the time.
Yeah,
true. So I would just sit there and be like, no.
Yeah. But yeah, go do that if you haven't already. And Amy, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me on Instagram at Ames_Elizabeth.
You can find me on most platforms at PickupChangeToe. Perhaps not Twitter, if Elon continues to be a complete bellend and keep screwing things up.
I mean,
I don't want to look at less than 600 tweets a day, you twat.
Really,
honestly.
who cares about Twitter anymore? It's dying in death. And
Follow
it
me
should
on
have died
Hive
a
Social.
death.
Hive Social at PickupChangeToe. Let's
Not that
go.
you ever go on it.
I mean, I
You
posted
have
on
it?
I posted on Hive yesterday, so go follow me on Hive Social if you're on Hive.
Pushing the
Mastodon
boat
makes
out.
no bloody sense, but Hive's pretty straightforward.
I mean,
So go do that. But yeah, so hopefully we'll be back soon for the Sontaran Stratagem and the Poison Sky. Oh, it means we get Bernard Cribbins back.
yay!
Big old Wilf.
Yay!
So yeah, please stay tuned for that. If you're listening on YouTube, then please do subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, then use that little Q&A tab thing to throw in your questions for next time. But until we see you again, thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourselves. We will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.